Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Devdatta and today we are in conversation with journalist and critic Sabahat Zakariya, who recently reviewed the film Dhurandhar, and we are in discussion with her to talk more about what she thought worked for the film, what she thought didn't work for the film, and whether she looked at the film as an anti-Pakistan film. Hello and welcome to The Print, Sabahat.
Thank you, Devdatta.
To begin with, a lot has been said on this film. The narratives, the whether it depicts things clearly in a good light, in a bad light, what is negative, what is positive. I would like to know from you, what do you think? What are the hits and misses of Durandar? What worked and what didn't? Uh, as a Pakistani viewer, what did you think?
Well, as a general viewer, first of all, I thought that the hits were definitely the fact that the script was very, very gripping. So the ability to write a screenplay that keeps your audience hooked, obviously, Aditya Dhar most definitely has that skill. I felt with the Indian reviews, probably the one unfair thing I felt was that, at least from what I saw, very few people acknowledged that, the ones who were critiquing the film very rightly. And I'm really sort of proud of anybody who within their own country challenges dominant narratives, majoritarian narratives. So I mean, I think that a lot of the Indian reviewers who reviewed it and critiqued it did the right thing. But I feel like at the same time, if you do not acknowledge the fact that, X, Y, or Z thing is actually good about it, in a way, your critique also gets undermined. So I personally think that perhaps that part of it could have been acknowledged a little bit more, because after all, it's doing so well. And mostly when something does this well, there has to be a reason. It's rarely ever just propaganda. People do not go into the cinema for bad propaganda. They do go in for good propaganda. And the fact of the matter is that somebody who is clever enough to create good propaganda, you have to hand it to them.
So what you have talked at length about the movie, and we will discuss the nuances later. But what, according to you, were the good parts?
Yes, I first of all, yes, I feel the script, obviously, the screenplay, the direction, the acting, the cinematography, the whole sweeping cinematic experience. I mean, I genuinely considered going and watching it again because I just felt it was fun. And although I do not like films like these. I don't like high testosterone movies. I don't really care about that level of violence, whatever. But still, if even within that genre somebody has even been able to do it well, and also you see he really understands how not to just completely be on a high all the time. Like if testosterone and violence are an important factor in it, he knows how to calm it down with a little bit of, romance or nuance or emotion or subtlety. So he's definitely a good filmmaker, you cannot deny that.
And what, according to you, did not work?
Yes, I in the review I did speak about the fact that as a Pakistani, because now you're creating a world which is almost 100% situated in Pakistan. So now you cannot have the excuse of saying, "Oh, this is how Indians speak Urdu," or this is not India. You're showing Pakistan. So if you're showing Pakistan, then my critiques on the Urdu are very valid, because I did get a lot of comments on my review saying, "Oh, this is for an Indian audience," and it is for an Indian audience, but as a director, you are creating a universe, and if you're creating a universe, then it has to be as authentic as possible. And yes, obviously, I understand that a film requires like humongous amounts of effort and God knows what is invested in it, how much time and energy and everything. I understand that, but you also have huge budgets. So if you have consultants on board, etc., like why are they not doing their job properly? Why are you not really hiring? That means, again, when you are going to make a propaganda film about Pakistan, that's the problem. When your country is that cut off from Pakistan, then you can't perhaps really hire Pakistanis who can look into, or smart enough Pakistanis who can look into these details and give you feedback. So I really felt one of the things I noticed across those hours was that very often the fonts that they deployed in, maybe I think it was a newspaper or some other areas as well, that font only exists online. That font does not exist in the real world. So now, obviously, you have to know Urdu, you have to know um, Pakistan's fonts in the real world to be able to recognize that. Um, there was I've said in the review that there was one place where I caught bad spellings. Zaikedar was written with a y in it. It doesn't have a y in it. So things like that, but they were not very frequent, frankly. I felt they were pretty limited. Speech, though, for sure. Like if you're making Arjun Rampal's character an ISI agent and he's speaking like, somebody from India, then that just, is a jarring experience.
That kind of reminds me of, the memes that are going on, that, oh, my first day as a Pakistani spy, and what gives us away is the accent or the way we behave. So yeah, along those lines. And that also brings you to the larger question of, I'll come to this later, but first of all, the larger question of what you said, that when you create a universe of characters, and when your film's central focus is on, say, Pakistani characters, and these are not, like in earlier discussions, I have discussed this with researchers and academicians who have worked extensively on Lyari, that these are not fictional characters. They are real life characters. They are characters who are part of the folklore of a particular region. So when you assign a character in a larger cinematic framework, I feel the onus lies with you to ensure that the representation is correct. When the misrepresentation kind of is so evident, despite the good parts of the film or the bad parts of the film, debating on the character arc, the character sketch, the accents, like you talked about, the language, how important do you think these technical details are for a film to work, and to ensure that, for someone who perhaps does not know Karachi, or for someone who perhaps is looking at from a third person's perspective on Lyari and its entire, the world of Lyari, do you think it is correct to not be, say, so in depiction of the people who are as obvious going to be affected by this kind of depiction?
Okay, I think the cinema is not affected by it whatsoever, because you are creating a universe that the people you are intending it for don't know anything about. So
Right.
you can say whatever, you can do whatever, and they won't be able to pick up on anything because that's not something they're familiar with. So cinematically, I don't think it makes any difference. Cinematically, what makes a difference is whether the story you're telling within the universe that you've created seems plausible. That universe could be entirely misrepresented, but if within it, or within what you have created, it seems plausible, then that's what counts for the story, for the cinema. But the other hand, people who are actually from Liari, impacted by it, etc., I think that stuff is being really played up by Pakistanis who feel a little bit left out because of the fact that they can't create something like this. They can only create documentaries or something, low level, low budget. That again, something I did not put in the review, but I feel like I did shoot it, but then in the end, because of time constraints, I left it out. That is that I think a lot of these questions about how it impacts Liari and things like that, like how does it impact Liari? It doesn't impact Liari in any shape or form. Not today, when it's talking about something in the past. In fact, it's just kind of almost romanticizing Liari in some ways, glamorizing it in some ways. It's bringing it to people's attention. I don't see what's the big deal. And the thing is that the people who are criticizing it, the film, they themselves are outsiders to Liari most of the time. Like, you also went into Liari, you used it for your academic purposes to cement your career in academia. You are from the outside as well. What gives you the right to tell a story? So class considerations, you will not take into account at all. But nationalistic considerations you are really bothered about. So the fact is, there's so many people I know who live in defense in Karachi, and who sold stories about Liari to international publications, made documentaries which were shown in foreign universities all over the world, etc. So you do your scavenging from a place that can give you advantage in your own way, at your own level. Somebody else does it at their own level. Don't try to be so sort of high and moralistic about it.
So, in your opinion, two things. Do you think then that the movie or the whole cinematic experience was plausible enough? And second question, why do you think such a film has not been made in Pakistan yet?
It was definitely plausible, and again, if you are an Indian, it's completely plausible. You can't hear the accent problems, and you can't hear any of that. So, yeah. But as a Pakistani, well, it's not released in Pakistan. It's not something that Pakistanis have actually seen. Although I know that a lot of them would have really liked to, and they will hopefully and eventually on Netflix. But I mean, hopefully, I don't know. It's not like it necessarily presents Pakistan in the best light at all. Really, in the actual text, like I've said, but in the subtext, it's interesting that because it shows Pakistan for so long, you do feel invested in a Pakistan that is kind of a little bit beyond international terror. It is about domestic situations and etc. Because Pakistan doesn't have a film industry to speak of, and I have heard a lot of Pakistanis talk about the fact that Pakistan should tell these stories. Stories are not something, we have so many files in which all of these stories are there. Like, it makes no difference. You may have 1,000 files in which stories are there. There are stories everywhere around you in the world. It's not about having a story. It's about being able to knit a story and then create one. And then it's about budgets and it's about mahal. So, the most important thing that you need for any kind of art to flourish is the environment that you're in. So Mumbai is a place that allows you to create these things because there's money flowing in all directions for any kind of good idea to be picked up, etc. There are people, there are like thousands of people with great technical skills, like Aditya Dhar himself. He was an assistant director before he got into actually making his first directorial debut with Uri. And then I was watching a Farhan Akhtar interview the other day, and I was surprised to hear he said that he was an assistant director in Lamhe. And I'm like, wow. So he was an assistant director in a movie 10 years before he made his own debut movie Dil Chahta Hai. That is the kind of mahal that you're raised in. You raised around Yash Chopra and Farhan Akhtar and whatnot, and Javed Akhtar, whatever. Those kinds of environments produce the kind of thing that can actually move audiences to this level. And Pakistan, unfortunately, just doesn't have at all anything like that. That mahal just doesn't exist, in the sense that you have to have 1,000 things. In those 1,000 things, there will be 990 things that are bad, but 10 will come out to be good because the mahal exists for those 1,000 things to exist. And unfortunately, we just don't have that. Our music, yes, fortunately, still has some of it, but films, no.
I mean, now the post Durandhar and the whole, the furor around it, the Sindh government in Pakistan has announced a counter movie to counter what they call the propaganda and to show Lyari for what it is, like the culture and the people of Lyari. Why do you think, like you said, the Pakistani film industry why do you think there's this need to make a counter film and not an actual film? Like, why do you, what I'm trying to frame is
Yeah,
that why is it that there needs to be a film for you to counter it and not come from you in the first
exactly.
place? And
That's a
how,
fundamental. I'm sorry, I'm cutting. No,
no,
that's a
that's
fundamental misunderstanding of what cinema is, right? That is exactly what all of these commentators have also been doing. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of film, of cinema. It's not going to work if it's purely based on propaganda. That's what ISI, that's what ISPR has been doing for decades. It's been trying to create these things that it thinks, we are going to tell our side of the story. Until unless the story itself is amazing, until unless the art and the craft of it is something that genuinely moves you or is compelling, do not think that simply making a story is going to work, or responses, like you're saying. Exactly, like that is fundamentally not understanding what film or what cinema is. That's exactly ISPR's problem. That is just generally, like, I recently saw a Pakistani film that was a hit in Pakistan called Love Guru, and that was not responding to anything or anybody. In fact, I thought it was fairly decent. It was an entertaining watch, and I think that is exactly what Pakistan should first focus on: build something that is actually watchable for Pakistanis themselves. But and you see, that is where this whole problem comes in. Pakistan is in some ways so dependent on India in terms of art and all of that, that since Indian movies have been banned, it's so hard for Pakistanis to make successful movies, commercial movies that people will come to the cinema for. When they came to the cinema for Indian movies, for Bollywood movies, Pakistani movies also started flourishing, right? You could actually invest in them and make money because cinemas were booming. So now Pakistan, that's the thing that, without India, Pakistan's commercial prospects are sadder than they would be if the situation was better, between them.
Right. I mean, yeah, that does remind me of this larger piece on Pakistani cinema and how Pakistani audience, because they are so used to seeing the same characters that they see on their TV serials, they do not get up and actually go to a cinema hall to watch the same characters on like the bigger screen. So, and there was a huge audience for Indian films, especially the Khan generation. They would go for a Salman Khan or a Shah Rukh Khan movie.
No,
And
honestly, I'm sorry. I'll have to, sort of interrupt you a little bit here. Truly, I personally don't. It has nothing to do with the Khans. It truly, because I'm old enough. I know somebody born or somebody who's majorly spent their life in the '90s might think it's Shah Rukh Khan or Salman Khan. It's not. It is not about the fact that they're Muslim or anything like that, or the fact. I'm telling you that the kind of phenomena Amitabh Bachchan was in my childhood is beyond what I've ever seen in my life. Like, yes, Shah Rukh Khan is also a huge phenomena, obviously, in Pakistan as well. But as much as him, and to my childhood mind, I think Amitabh was even bigger because the, you know, media was scarce at that time, right? And therefore Amitabh was everything. Like, I know people who fantasized about him, kids who like, literally, it was crazy how big he was. So truly, when people say that it was or Indians feel that maybe it's about Shah Rukh Khan or Salman Khan or the fact that they're Muslim, I'm telling you, it truly doesn't have anything to do with that. It is about the fact that Indian cinema is beloved in Pakistan. It's truly a passion, because it is the closest thing we have to cinema, and we don't see it as a foreign cinema. And that is precisely why I'm saying that people get upset with things like Durandhar, because it feels like they're being otherized, they're being made foreign, when they themselves in their own heads don't see it as something different.
right, which brings me to the point, since you are talking about otherization, you actually argue in your review that this film kind of humanizes the Pakistani characters. It shows them in a very different human aspect, which grounds the characters and around their lived realities. So, if you could tell me a little bit more on that, on what made you think, and what are the nuances that you thought they did get right.
Yes, I think that just the fact that for 3 hours you are immersed in a universe which is in Pakistan, right? So these people, and Aditya Dhar, he knows his craft. He knows he cannot make these characters into cartoon caricatures, right? So if he were to turn that, turn them into that, the film wouldn't be successful as far as I'm concerned. I can tell it wouldn't be, because it wouldn't be a good film. It would not be an interesting film. The characters would not be interesting. So he has to make them interesting. And therefore, Rahman Dakait, despite the fact that it's Akshay Khanna and he's done a great job and all his aura and everything, yeah, that's obviously part of it. But the fact is that Rahman Dakait is written in such a way that he fully feels like the hero of the film in so many ways, right? By the end of it, we don't feel like completely like he's a villain. Other than that one scene where he joins in with the Narai Takbir, Allahu Akbar bit, he does not seem to be interested in any kind of religious extremism, or we never see him say anything that can suggest that he is into any of that. It only seems like an expedient move in that moment. The ISI officer is sitting there. There is that heat of the moment in which people are doing this. So he kind of like joins in. You feel that sense. At least that's the sense I got from that scene. And it's not like he's the one leading the chant and he's like, oh, let's go. Like, no, it is Major Iqbal who's the true villain. If there's one true Pakistani villain in the movie, it's that guy, Major Iqbal, and he's a minor character. We don't really see much of him. The ones that we do see, they are pretty multidimensional. So and Ranveer's character, like hitting Raman Dakate's character, boxing him to death, and thinking about the Nara Takbir bit. I think for that character, it makes sense because he saw him do it. But to me, as the audience member, I felt like, that's kind of reducing that character to that moment alone, because, that was not really his main motivation in life whatsoever. But yeah, for an Indian agent, Indian, officer, it would still be probably unforgivable in his head, for his emotions. So yeah, it makes sense.
And there's also a lot of discussion around the politics in the movie. Some PPP spokesperson from around Pakistan have also gone on record to say that it's not right to depict, Benazir Bhutto's flags and the whole PPP association that Rahman Dakait had. If I were to ask you, according to you, do you think how correct was the depiction of the politics of that time in the film?
To be very fair, I am from Lahore. I'm not a Karachiite. My journalistic experience is also mainly based in Lahore. So I don't think really I'm the best person to comment on this. Having said that, whatever I do know of it, it seemed purely in terms of the depiction, it seemed correct. All right. The politician figure, we can very easily map him onto a real figure that we know. And so it's interesting in that way as well, because it's so well done again, because that character, I don't, very few people outside of whoever votes for him seem to like him very much. So yeah, it's funny to see him caricatured like that, because he is, also played for comic effect, that character. So yeah, I feel like the larger politics did not seem too wrong to me. It seemed like it was fine. Yes, Liari was controlled by these elements. Those all those things seemed correct. So yeah, I think that largely I didn't see an issue with the politics either. The jalsas were done very well. I think that I was surprised they could put up a picture of Benazir Bhutto like that. Like, how does it impact them in terms of legality and stuff like that? Because they did change PPP's name. So why keep Benazir's image instead of, a make believe somebody who looks like her? They directly are keeping some images, and so it's very strange to me how the legality of it works.
And one final question before I let you go, Sabahat. Who was your favorite character in the entire film? And uh, first of all, that. And lastly, if Dhurandhar were to release in Pakistan, what kind of reception do you think it would receive?
Okay, so my favorite character, I know I really like Ranveer in general, so I would say that probably him. But obviously, Rahman Dakate's character is so good that there's no way that you can overlook him. So yeah, I also really liked Ozair, the guy who played Ozair Baloch. I felt like he looked so realistically Pakistani. Like, if there was something about him that just looked very right and correct. So I also like that. I think the girl was actually very interesting too, because she's literally the only female character in the movie who has a real role. And so I think she did a good job. So yeah, generally, I think the acting itself in general was so good that's hard to pick. If it was released in Pakistan, I think it would have a positive response. I really, really think so. Because again, I think Pakistanis also appreciate good cinema. They also appreciate good Bollywood. They care about it. It's very interesting. I wish there was a universe in which it could be released in Pakistan and we could see the response. But I think Pakistanis would enjoy it. Yes, they will feel uncomfortable, obviously, and they will, but that is the trick of the movie. That even when you are a Pakistani, you're watching it, you still enjoy the movie. But there are parts of it, I think Aditya Giddhar goes a little bit too far at times, where he says, like, every single bit of terror emanates out of Pakistan and the world. Like, the world is a huge place. Like, I live in the United States. We completely mm, dismiss places like South America that are like full of terror and things like that that has nothing to do with Pakistan, for instance. So that kind of sweeping statement is stupid, and undermines the general clever way in which the movie has otherwise been done. Um, so yeah, and also the BJP, sort of. Um, I don't have the nicer word for it, so I don't, I don't know what to say. Like, so but the thing is that all of that yeah definitely detracts. I think it could have been toned down, but obviously he himself believes in this, and that is the sad part. That his politics is seemed pretty sad, frankly. But then there are other ways in which because his craft is so good that his politics that is overshadowed by the craft, and that's where the good part comes in. So yeah, I think Pakistani people would enjoy it too.
I have one question, which since you were talking about it, I just realized there were a few reviews which also talked about the female characters. And since you said that, you like the female characters, and since they were all, their identity was all Pakistani in the cinema, I would like to ask you that how did you find the female characters in the film? Do you think that they were given enough space and enough agency as female characters? And how true to the region or to the country or to the women of Pakistan was it? And how far would you say that no, these was mostly stereotypical?
No, I think that the main lead, the female main lead, was given quite a bit of agency. She is able to manipulate her father when it is required. Like although he's shown to be not a very good father, in some ways, or at least in the more obvious ways. But then when she wants money from him, she's able to manipulate him whichever way she wants. On
That's a
and then
very desi thing.
sorry.
I said that's a very desi thing.
Yeah, exactly right. So it was good. And also, how I don't know how it operates in India, but I also thought that was good. That how you kind of have to live a clandestine life, so your parents know another side of your personality, and there's a completely other side of your personality that exists that nobody at home is very aware of. And so she does do that kind of double agent thing, which all of us really, women, in these kinds of environments are attuned to doing. So yeah, that kind of thing where she goes out and she has to maybe use the excuse of medical school in order to be able to allowed out a lot of the times, things like that, or without any rope book. So those things are good. The fact that she wears a mini dress in the middle of Karachi and just walks down the road talking to Ranveer. Now, one friend of mine was saying, "Oh, I have friends who wear mini dresses and they have guards and they don't care about that." And I was like, oh, and in DHA Phase 8 Karachi, because I made that critique, and she said, she doesn't really agree with it that much. So I said, okay, but your money cannot control the street. Okay, maybe yeah, you can do it in your controlled environment, the environment your money can control, but there is an environment outside of it that you still can't control, and there
Beyond
was,
the gated societies.
yeah, exactly, beyond the gated societies and all of that, and environments with guards. So I felt that walking down the Karachi street at night like that easily did feel off to me. I wish and that could be true, and that would be wonderful. But it did seem a little bit off, personally. I would say she would wear maybe at least a coat or something, so, but I guess that wouldn't work for the sexiness factor of the movie. But so yeah, so that. But other than that, I felt like most of the time she was depicted fine. I mean, she shouldn't say phone fako, but but other than that, she was fine.